On every roadside in Ireland, you see Irish first and English below. It's been that way since their independence. It's written in the Constitution and it's government policy. Irish is the first official language of Ireland, but less than 2% of the population speaks it every day. Hi, I'm Melly, linguistics nerd, world traveler, and brief resident of Ireland back in 2018. This is Wanderling, where we explore languages through travel. And today, we're in Cobh, talking about what happened to the Irish language. I spent 3 months living in Dublin. When my parents came to visit, we stayed at a farm just outside Middleton in County Cork. There's a stone cottage on a land that the same family has been farming for 7 generations. It was incredibly charming and so cozy. Peak Irish countryside.
I was wrong, that's more than one bird.
And it was just a short drive from Cobh. Cobh sits on an island in Cork Harbour, and there are all these colorful houses. It actually reminded me a lot of New England. One thing this harbor is famous for, Cobh was the Titanic's last port of call before it crossed the Atlantic. And by the way, if you're thinking about visiting Ireland, I'm a travel advisor, and Cobh is one of those places that a lot of people don't realize they can get to easily because it's a regular cruise stop. Link is in the description if you want to talk through our trip. So, Irish is a Celtic language, which puts it on a completely different branch of the Indo-European family tree from English, French, Latin, or Spanish. Its closest relatives are Scottish Gaelic and Manx. Welsh and Breton are more distant cousins. And it is structurally so different from English. And it's old. Irish has one of the oldest written literary traditions in Europe, with writing in the language reaching back to the early Middle Ages. Today, you see it on the top line of road signs, government signs, official documents, but most people are only reading the bottom line. When I surveyed Irish English speakers for this series, not one of them identified as fluent in Irish. Some were conversational, especially the ones that spent time in a particular region that we'll talk about in another episode, but less than 2% of the population speaks it daily. My survey was a small sample, but it does match the data found in larger studies. So how did that happen? The English ruled Ireland for several centuries, which pushed English into positions of power. To get ahead, to work, to trade, you had to speak English. Irish became associated with the poor, or the rural, the Catholic. That pressure had been building for a long time before things got catastrophic. Between 1845 and 1852, roughly 1 million people died of starvation and disease. And across the decade of the famine, around 2 million more emigrated out of Ireland. So the population dropped by about 25%. And the people who died and left were disproportionately Irish speakers. The rural West, where Irish was strongest, was hit the hardest. A lot of them left through this harbor. At the same time, the national school system, which was established in 1831, was teaching children in English and actively discouraging Irish. Families went along with it because they knew English was the path to survival. By the time Ireland began gaining independence in the early 1920s, Irish was already in serious decline. The new state made Irish compulsory in schools and required it for government jobs. In the 1937 Constitution, it was declared the first official language of Ireland. The intent was revival, but the results were complicated because making a language mandatory creates resentment as much as fluency. The Irish language survived colonization, the famine, and being discouraged by the national school. Then Ireland got its independence, made Irish compulsory. That could be part of what's killing it. Because a generation of Irish school kids grew up associating Irish with obligation, with tests, with something you had to do rather than something you wanted to do. You can legislate a language onto a sign, but you can't legislate it into someone's conversations with their friends and family. And that's the place where languages actually survive. If you want to go deeper on what the Irish language looks like, the spelling, which I think is the prettiest orthography of any Latin script, the sounds, why Cobh is spelled nothing like Cove, we'll get to that in another episode. It's a whole rabbit hole. If you're Irish and I got something wrong, please leave a comment and let me know. And if this is the kind of thing you want more of, please subscribe to the channel. We have so much more to get into. Bye for now.